Okay everybody, welcome to My Garage Winery, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. While the wine is fermenting in the garage, we're going to make something that is just phenomenal, tastes amazing, goes with everything. That is sauerkraut. And you see a lot of sauerkraut recipes online and also lots on YouTube channels. What I want to do though is stress the simplicity of making sauerkraut and really try to convince you that the only things you need, at least for basic sauerkraut that still tastes good, is cabbage and salt. And that's it. What we'll need today to make our sauerkraut is a good glass of white wine, because remember we're making white wine in the garage, so we're on a white wine kick. Cutting board, uber sharp knife, scale, and then I've got a 10-liter food grade bucket. So I've just washed up. This cost me a tenner online, and it is a cabbage shredder to make things go a little bit smoother. First thing you want to do with your cabbage is take the outer skin off, or the outer layer off. The next thing is we want to get a proper mass of the cabbage. So to do that, we first want to cut the cabbage in half and get rid of the core, because we're not going to be fermenting. Cut that out, so you just make a nice V-shaped cut. Do that with the second one as well. Super. Brilliant. See if you can see that. We're looking at 1.2 kilograms. Good. Okay, so we know the mass of our cabbage is 1.2 kilograms. We might as well go ahead and work out the mass of our salt that we're going to add to it. So again, I've just got standard table salt. It's non-iodized. Alright, so, and it's not colorized or anything either. It's just good old white table salt. So the calculation is pretty straightforward. We've got 1.2 kilogram of cabbage. That equals 1,200 grams. And the secret to making good, not overly salty sauerkraut is that 2% of the weight of the cabbage should be salt. Now that's easy enough to calculate out in my head, but I'll do it on the calculator. So typically when I look online for sauerkraut recipes, I don't tend to trust them if they say grab a large cabbage and put 6 tablespoons of salt in or something silly like that. It's just not right. You're not going to get the right balance of cabbage to salt. So stick with 2% and you'll be fine. So 24 grams. This is just blasting out. Bingo. And you can see right away just makes an absolute mess. But the shavings are perfect, okay? Nice and small shavings. And that's what we want. We don't want our cabbage shavings to be any thicker than that. Look at the bits of shred here. Absolutely perfect. Look at that. Gorgeous. Okay. Just beautiful stuff. So now we're ready to add the salt. Straightforward. Just start to layer it over. Okay, and I've added about half, and then I'm going to kind of turn things over, bringing what is on the bottom to the top, just like that. Add another layer. And then again, mix it up, bringing what was on the bottom up to the top. Okay. Okay, and then finally, one more layer. There we go. Salt's added. Perfect. Now, here's the secret. You don't want to rush through and finish the job. You want to let the salt do its work. There we are. So I'm going to let this sit for 1 hour and let the salt do the maceration. Then I'll come in and we'll work with it after that. Okay, welcome back. It's been about an hour and it's given me time to give the place a quick tidy up. I'm going to pop the top. As I squeeze it, you might be able to see that there's juice starting to come out. That is a fantastic thing, because that means I'm pretty much ready for the crush here. Okay, so I'll just work it in. Hopefully you can see that. If not, no worries. The main thing is I want to do a maceration and generate enough juice that it covers the cabbage completely. And what sauerkraut does is it generates lactic acid, and that lactic acid is the crispy acid that you taste in your sauerkraut, and that's from lactobacillus, which is one of 3 bacteria that are typically found in sauerkraut. And we don't need to add any bacteria to it. There's going to be some either on the cabbage or just kicking around anyway. So it's not like our wine where we have to add the yeast to the wine, to the must, I mean, to make wine. In fact, we can get fermentation of the must without adding any yeast. That would just be the native yeasts that are kicking around. We tend not to do that because we don't know the quality of that yeast and what type of flavors or toxins it'll give off. So typically we kill that yeast by adding our own culture of yeast and also by adding some SO2. Here we're going to rely on bacteria, native bacteria, to ferment this. Wow, it's really, you can see the juice now. It's just gorgeous. So I'm going to let this sit now for another 20 minutes or so, and then I'm transfer it to the holding jar where it's going to ferment, and I'll give it one more crush before I transfer and after I transfer, and that should be enough. Okay, so stick around. Right, so I've given it another 15 minutes just to really get that maceration, let that salt do the work. Okay, and if I hold it up here now, hopefully you can see when I'm squeezing it, it's just full of that gorgeous purple. Right. So I like to use the large Kilner jars for sauerkraut, and I went and I bought myself a really fancy wide mouth funnel as well, which helps me pack this without getting a lot of crap on the side. Okay, now I like the wide mouth Kilners because I can get right inside and just keep on macerating. And it also then allows me to see how much juice I've generated, because in the end you want the cabbage below the juice. Okay. The method that I use to keep the cabbage under the water is the Ziplock bag method. Okay, so I've just washed it off, made sure that it's nice and clean. And what you want to do is just prepare a little bit of water. I'd say it's about 500 mils. I won't need that much though. And you can notice now that I'm not really too concerned with the amount of salt, but I'm going to say about 2 tablespoons of salt, okay, in this water. And I'm just adding salt to this water. This is going to help keep the water sterile. Okay. Good. And now what we want to do is take our bag and without puncturing the bag, pop it inside. Spread it out evenly. And then press down on the cabbage. And what happens is that it pushes the cabbage under the water or under the juice, and the juice starts to raise up. Okay. And then to keep the pressure on this, we're going to add our salty water, our brine. And this applies pressure, pushing it down. Just like that. Okay, so I've added maybe 100 mils, somewhere around there. That, if you can take a look, the cabbage level is definitely under the juice. All right, and that's where we want to be. Cabbage under the juice. Perfect, and that's it. So we've got our cabbage prepared now. The level of the cabbage is below the level of the juice, and we're holding that down with a Ziplock bag full of seawater, so to speak, of brine. And now it's just about letting nature do its thing. So I'm going to let this ferment for about 2 weeks now. Welcome back to My Garage Winery, and it's now been about 2.5 weeks, and it's ready to harvest the sauerkraut. So let's get going. So you can see I've got it now transferred to a plastic container, and the look of it is just gorgeous. It is amazing. I can smell it. It doesn't smell too strong, but it's just got that sauerkraut sheen to it that's perfect. I'll give it a final try. Oh yeah. The thing with this recipe is it's not overly salty. We use enough salt to keep the fermentation going, keep it safe so no other critters potentially get in there, but it's not enough salt to just make you think you're eating salt. So there we are. Take care.